Hello, everyone. I'm Teresa Woodard, and I am coming to you from our WFAA studio on this Sunday evening with more on the breaking news we have been covering all night. Democrats from the Texas House of Representatives flying out of state, some to Chicago, some to Boston, some to Albany, New York. They are breaking quorum during this special session. That means they are working to prevent a vote on that redrawn congressional map, a controversial map that certainly could give Republicans an edge. So in the next few minutes, we are going to give you some additional context about why all of this really impacts you no matter where you are watching us from tonight, here in Texas or even beyond. We are awaiting a news conference from the Texas Democrats who went to Chicago. We are expecting them to appear alongside the Illinois governor maybe in the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. And as we are waiting on that to begin, we are going to go ahead and bring in Jason Wheeler. He is the co-host of our Y'all-itics political podcast. He's going to be with us throughout the next little bit. And Jason, this quorum break, no surprise at all.
That was going to be the first line out of my mouth here, Teresa. This isn't a surprise. I think that the only surprise was, leading into this week was what day Democrats were going to choose to do this here in Texas. They just don't have any power in the legislature to stop a bill like this or to stop movement on redistricting maps because Republicans have such a majority in both chambers at the Capitol. And of course, we've got a Republican governor here in Texas. So they're really powerless to stop something like this unless they can leave the state and leave the House of Representatives in Austin without enough members. They have to have a certain number of members in order to be able to conduct business and to have a vote on something. And if enough Democrats leave, in this case, they needed 51 of the 62 Democrats to leave the state. If you can get that many to leave, it freezes the House in place. The House just can't go forward with business. And so that's what Democrats here have done. One other surprise, I think, though, is that they chose to go to 3 different places around the country, as you were just talking about. I don't know that we've seen them do that before. They've walked out of the legislature before for different issues, including a mid-decade redistricting back in the early 2000s. But this is an interesting twist to see them go to 3 different locations in 3 different states. I think one other surprise, or one other unknown, I should say here, one other big question mark hanging over this is how long they plan to be gone this time. Mm-hmm. The last time that they were fighting redistricting, they stayed away for about a month and then came back, and then those maps ended up getting right through just as Republicans had wanted in the first place. This time, maybe it's me, but I've been speaking with some of the Democratic leadership here in Texas leading up to today, and they sound different this time. So I don't know. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's just a different tone. Maybe we'll see them come back within that same kind of time period as before, or maybe they're planning to decamp for much longer this time, Teresa. It's just kind of an unknown.
Yeah, well, this special session that's currently underway should end on August 19th. So I guess it's possible that they could just be delaying the inevitable. But if they stay away through the end of this special session, of course, Governor Abbott has the ability to call a second special session right away. So you're right. That is sort of the unknown. And then the other part of this is that after they broke quorum in 2021, when they were trying to prevent a package of voting restrictions from passing, new rules went into effect that put higher fines on these members when they break quorum. So a lot of different things at play. So Jason, stay with us. I want to now try to bring in Matt Howerton, who is in our newsroom. Matt's been following this story for us all evening long. And Matt, let's go to you. You can kind of just break down everything that's been happening and what is happening now.
Yeah, Teresa, the moment this newly proposed voting map hit the floor, this move was always on the table. And as Jason mentioned, I think it was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. A quorum-busting walkout penned in pencil, but now it is written in ink. Today, roughly 51 Texas House Democrats booked one-way tickets to Chicago, Boston, Albany, leaving the Capitol in Austin to stall this redistricting plan that aims to add 5 Republican seats to Congress, which would increase the chances of maintaining a Republican majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. There are roughly 16 days left in this special session, as you mentioned, so this is a move to run the clock out, so to speak, so these maps don't move forward. Obviously, the governor can move forward with another session, and it's highly likely this new map will eventually become reality. That has caused such a stir amongst both parties here. But this walkout will drum up awareness, headlines, and lots of attention as to what's happening here in Texas. Even under a new law passed in 2023 following a walkout in 2021, as you mentioned, those lawmakers can be fined up to $500 a day for not being present. So around right now, with I think 16 days left in the session, that's up to $8,000 per member if they stay away until the end of this special session. The National Democratic Party will help cover that cost, and warrants for the arrest and return of these lawmakers who have left will likely be issued. Since they are in a blue state, though, it's unlikely that the state of Texas, or at least anyone trying to get these lawmakers to return, will get any cooperation from officials in Illinois, New York, or in Massachusetts. This all coming as the Texas House was set to debate and potentially vote on this new map on Monday. And there's a press conference expected later tonight in Chicago with those lawmakers there who have left. And again, this isn't the first time that Democrats have left Texas to avoid a redistricting vote. In 2003, Democrats took off to Oklahoma and New Mexico to achieve the same goal when U.S. House Majority Leader Republican Tom DeLay was trying to tilt Texas to tighten the grip, the GOP grip in Congress. And we just spoke with a former lawmaker who was part of that group. His thoughts, we're going to have those tonight at 10 and later on WFAA+. But for now, Teresa, back to you.
All right, Matt Howerton sort of breaking down how we got where we are and where things stand tonight. Matt, thank you so much. We will see you on WFAA News at 10. Before we go back to Jason, I do want to make mention that Republicans are, of course, weighing in. We have heard tonight from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who posted on social media, I don't know if we can bring that quote up, but he said, quote, "Democrats in the Texas House who try and run away like cowards should be found, arrested, and brought back to the Capitol immediately." He went on to say, quote, "We should use every tool at our disposal to hunt down those who think they are above the law." End quote. We also heard from Representative Jeff Leach of the Collin County area. He posted saying, quote, "For any of my Democratic colleagues who want to ride back to Texas after your hot dogging quorum break attempt implodes, give me a call." So clearly a lot of snark going on back and forth between the two parties. But also this is serious business. I did see House Speaker Dustin Burrows post earlier that all tools are on the table. He was trying to sort of go back to some of the things that Democrats had been saying as they approached this potential quorum break that has come to pass tonight. Okay, let's bring Jason back in. And Jason, I don't know if you've kept an eye on your email, but just to let you know, and our viewers as well, it sounds like the plane that was carrying some of these lawmakers to Chicago has been delayed a little bit. So instead of a news conference starting at 8:15, we're looking more at like 8:30. And so Jason and I are going to be talking you through some things as we continue to wait on the beginning of that news conference. But let's first, Jason, I feel like sometimes when people hear redistricting, they don't quite grasp A, what it is, B, why it matters. So let's just talk from a general perspective.
Word.
Exactly, exactly.
You hear redistricting and you know your eyes almost start to go halfway down just on hearing that word, I think, a lot of times. Although it seems like in recent cycles, people have become a little more savvy about the power of redistricting. And basically what it does is you look at a map of Texas. Texas has 38 congressional districts, okay? So you've got to carve that up 38 ways, and it's got to be a contiguous map, so you can't have a little piece over here and a little piece over here for one district. They've got to, it's got to be a continuous area. And so they carve this up 38 ways, and then we go and we vote in, wherever area we're in on our member of Congress, who that person should be. What they're doing here and what this entails is moving voters around. So they'll get those lines and they'll adjust them a little bit this way and open them up that way and go up this way. And that's when you get those real funky looking districts that, you couldn't possibly draw on your own. And that's how they divvy up these districts. Now, a lot of times they know the voting habits of the people in those areas because they can look at a lot of data, especially these days. It's not done with a pencil and a big piece of paper. It's done by computer now, and all that data is crunched and it spits out this map. The interesting thing with this one, though, Teresa, and something that experts have been warning about and something that even Democrats have been warning Republicans about, is that the data that they're relying on in this case is muddier than usual because
Right.
the last time we did a census, it was back in 2020. Those maps were adopted in 2021. That data was fresh on who lives where and how they vote, et cetera. We've had some time that's gone by since then, and we have not had another census because we're not due for another one until 2030. And so people have moved in that time. They've moved away, they've moved in, and so there is a danger with doing this because you can run into carving up a district thinking that you know who's there, and it's not who's there anymore. So that's a risk that Republicans are willing to take, though.
Yeah, and you talked about the fact that, Texas is such a state where so many people are moving in that if this data was gathered in 2020, by 2026, the number of people that live in a certain place, who they are, what they look like, it's definitely dated. But in addition, remember that in 2020, there was a lot of concern about a lack of participation in the census as well. And so even that adds another layer of questioning whether the data is exactly what it should be. But I do want to explain to folks, like we talked about the districts. What does it mean? What does a district mean? Well, this means who represents you in Congress. The state approves the map that shows what your district looks like. And that's what they're trying to do right now, is change the district. So perhaps right now a Democrat represents you, but if this map was going to be approved, perhaps a Republican would begin to represent you. And that's because in some instances they've gone in and sort of carved this out at the direction of the White House to try to flip 5 seats currently represented by Democrats to more Republican-friendly areas. And that is why I think, Jason, we could see a little bit more national interest on this particular quorum break by Democrats than we saw in 2021. In 2021, we did see national stories about Texas Democrats leaving the state, as I said, to try to prevent that voting restrictions bill from going into effect or from passing out of the House and the Senate. But that was just Texas specific. This time, we're talking about the potential balance of power in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yeah, it is a huge, huge stakes game here that we're talking about. And that's the reason that we saw the Democratic leader in the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, coming to Texas earlier in the week to sort of rally the troops here. Again, he is the leader of the Democrats there in the House. He could very easily be the Speaker of the House of Representatives after next year's midterms if Democrats can pick up 3 more seats than they got the last time around. Now, you think about that. That's a razor-thin margin that we're talking about there. And if you think about every single district staying the same as it was, voting the same as it did the last time around, if they could just flip 3 seats, but then Texas goes in and changes 5 seats and makes those Republican instead of Democrat, Republicans hang on to that majority in the House. This is huge to President Trump and his agenda. Imagine a House of Representatives controlled by Democrats and the investigations they could launch into his administration, how they could stop his preferred legislation from moving through. He would have to negotiate with them much, much more to be able to get his priorities. He'd have to give them some on their priorities. And so we're talking about a really high stakes thing that's happening here. And, 5 seats is a fair number of seats when you start talking about really thin majorities like that. And that's why we're also seeing that national interest coming from places like Illinois, New York, and California, where they're saying, hey, you know what? We're big blue states, and we've got some Republican seats that we could probably redistrict to and make those safely Democratic seats. And so we're likely to possibly see a sort of an escalation. I think, some are calling it an arms race in redistricting. And then, where do we go from there? Do other states start to follow suit? Do we start seeing states trying to redistrict every 2 years for congressional elections? It used to be that you only redistricted once a decade. But there's a reason that we're seeing so much movement on this, because everyone involved on both sides understand how big of a deal that this is.
Yeah, high stakes, not just here in Texas, but all across the nation as well. Let's talk a little bit more specifically, though, about Texas. I know just when we came on the air, one of the first things you mentioned was the fact that, you know, Democrats really don't have a lot of control over this. This is the one thing they can do is just sort of leaving the state in order to prevent there from being a quorum being present, which means that official business can't happen. They don't have the numbers to vote against this. If Republicans want to push this through, it can be pushed through. But I am curious about public perception. What is your take? Do you think there is a chance at all that in a special session that started just basically 2 weeks after a historic, catastrophic flood in Texas, do you think there's any chance that Democrats can raise this sort of idea that Republicans should be addressing flood relief first instead of pushing through redistricting? I guess what I'm asking is, do Democrats have any leverage, and can Republicans at all look in the mirror and say maybe we should do flooding first?
Well, this can go both ways now. Okay, so in speaking with people throughout the week this week, I did notice, you know, Democrats have long been in the minority here in Texas, a couple of decades now, in fact, and their messaging is not always really cohesive, and you don't usually necessarily have everybody on the same page. I noticed the messaging was very direct this time around, one Democrat after another, basically saying Governor Abbott is holding that flood emergency stuff hostage and putting redistricting, a naked political partisan grab, ahead of flooding victims. They made that case several times over, you know, trying to, you know, press forward this message that we are here, we're ready, we want to do more to prepare for future floods here in Texas and make the warning systems better and the communications on those better. But here we have a governor who doesn't want to prioritize that first. That's what Democrats have been saying this week. But look out in the weeks ahead. Can they win that messaging battle if Republicans in Austin say, okay, we're ready now to do some flood relief here. We're ready to look in, you know, we're ready to actually pass some legislation and get some sirens and get some, you know, better flood measures. And we can't do it, though, because Democrats are gone. So you're going to see this messaging back and forth going on in the next couple of weeks. It's just a question of who is sharper with that message. And, you know, are people listening? Are they in their own silos and not really listening to what the other side has to say on that?
Yeah, we're taking a live look at the state capitol right now. And just again to remind everybody, we are awaiting a news conference with House Democrats from Austin who have left the state. We are expecting them to appear in Chicago at some point, maybe in the next 10 minutes or so, alongside the Illinois governor. They have broken quorum, which means they have left the House of Representatives without enough members to do official business. And the reason they are doing this at this hour on a Sunday night is because, as of this morning, the House Calendars Committee put a vote, or at least a debate, on the new congressional map on the House calendar for tomorrow. It was scheduled to be taken up around 3 p.m. tomorrow when the House gavels in. And we know right now there will not be enough Democrats there on the House floor to move forward with that. They can still gavel in, they just cannot do any official business. And so that is sort of why we are at this place on a Sunday night at 8:25, awaiting a news conference from House Democrats who, again, are in Chicago. We know that others have gone to Albany, New York, and others have gone to Boston, Massachusetts. Jason, I want to get into the weeds a little bit more. We've kind of been in the weeds, but let's dive a little deeper into this. I know, for any of our political nerds out there. But one of the premises of this redistricting was a letter from the U.S. Department of Justice that said, hey, the map that you currently have has districts that were unlawfully, unconstitutionally, racially gerrymandered or racially drawn back in 2021. Okay, that map has been the subject of lawsuits. People have gone to court and defended that map and said they are absolutely not racially gerrymandered. Yet the Department of Justice sent this letter, and sort of that was the basis for having this special session to redraw the districts. However, just yesterday, when this map passed out of the committee, the House committee that was created for redistricting. The chair of that committee admitted this is about political power. These were redrawn for political power. So what's your take? How interesting is it that we had a letter that came from the DOJ that claimed there was racial gerrymandering when that was one thing that Republicans had said in court multiple times there wasn't?
Yeah, it's interesting because it was the Trump Justice Department that sent that letter that said, hey, these districts, some of them were racially gerrymandered. And then you had President Trump himself speaking to reporters saying, I told them, hey, we can get 5. We can get 5 more seats there in Texas, not saying anything about, a reason for why. And then he says, we can also get some in some other states. And then on top of that, there was some consternation after the map came out, and they said, well, that didn't even address some of those districts that the Department of Justice was saying were racially gerrymandered. And to your point, Republicans who drew that map in 2021 here in Texas were there in court repeatedly defending those maps, which again, the lawsuits were filed on those, saying that those maps should be thrown out. And Republicans who drew the maps said over and over again, race was not even a consideration in this. But then, the governor relied upon the Justice Department memo saying these need to be redrawn because of race to say, hey, put this on the special session agenda. So there's kind of both sides happening. Sometimes people, colloquially will say that that's, speaking out of both sides of your mouth. We've got 2 different reasonings being given there for why these maps would be drawn. The fact of the matter is, though, Republicans are fully within their authority. They have the authority to redistrict at any time. It's just a matter of getting your messaging right and deciding what you're going to call it as far as the reason goes for doing it. But they have said in recent days, I think they've started to come around, hey, this is our right as a legislature. We can do this whenever we want, and we choose now to do it, and we have the power in this legislature. And so it goes back to that whole argument of elections having consequences, and Republicans have the power, and they are more than free to do this, and it's perfectly legal. And so, the question is, do other states start to do this, and especially blue states, to try to counter them? And a lot of those blue states have election commissions that draw the maps, and so that gets a little bit more dicey for some of those states. But Teresa, you were talking earlier about, the power of this and why this is so significant. And I spoke with a Republican congresswoman from North Texas earlier this week, Beth Van Dyne. And, hers is just a great example, I think. Initially, she won her district, 2 terms ago, by 1 point, about 1 point over her Democratic competitor. Right after that, the lines were redrawn. Her district lines were redrawn. Both elections since then, she has won by 20 points or so. So redistricting can make a huge deal. And again, right now, Republicans hold 25 of the 38 congressional districts in Texas. They are hoping that by redistricting, they can hold 30 of the 38 districts here in Texas. And I did the rough math on that. That comes out to, if they go through with that, and if Republicans can actually win in 30 different congressional districts in this state, they would control about 79% of the Texas congressional districts. And keep that number in mind, 79% of the districts representing Texas would be controlled by Republicans, even though they have carried this state in presidential elections, the past 5 presidential elections, with between 52 and 57% of the vote. Again, they could hold 79% of the congressional districts if they can get this through, and if they can actually win those 5 seats that are currently Democratic. There's been some talk that the 2 that are down in the valley that they tried to carve out, they made them a little more Republican, not as much so as some of the other areas of the state. Those could still be vulnerable to stay in Democratic hands, some people think. It's too early to tell right now, but those are 2 odd districts down south in the valley anyway, because those were crossover districts. There weren't many of them in the 2024 elections that voted for Trump for president, but then voted for a Democratic congressional representative, and those 2 districts were among those crossover districts. So Trump already won those districts, but so did the Democrats for Congress. And so did Republicans make those Republican enough to be able to get over the line and flip those 2 seats. I think they're gambling there that the Valley has been going more and more and more Republican in recent elections, and that maybe that trend continues and puts them over the top there.
It's very difficult to predict, though. I mean, the trend may tell you one thing, but I think a lot of that has to do with the candidate himself. You mentioned the Valley. That is, of course, one area that would be impacted by this. So would North Texas, clearly, when you consider the differences between the district that is currently held by Congresswoman Julie Johnson and the district that's currently held by Congressman Mark Vesey. A lot of consternation over exactly what those districts look like. And then Houston would, of course, be impacted greatly as well as the Austin area. Our urban core centers, I think, would see the greatest potentially change when it comes to representation. So again, I just want to set the stage. We're awaiting a news conference that should be beginning maybe within the next 5 minutes or so. Fingers crossed, Jason and I both say.
These things never happen on time.
I know. Originally, it was set for 7:15, but we knew that the flight was delayed a bit, and then it was supposed to begin at 8:15, and then again, there was another flight delay. And you are listening to Jason Wheeler and me because our Jason Whiteley, senior political reporter and the other co-host of the Yolitics podcast, is on his way to Chicago. When word came of this quorum break, he jumped on a plane, and so he should be landing there sometime, maybe in the 9 o'clock hour. We're hoping to hear from him on WFAA News at 10. But he will, of course, have live coverage from Chicago in the coming days. Jason, as we continue to wait, and like I said, this may start in the next few minutes here. So if it does begin, we'll just you and I will dump out and we'll go into that real quickly. But is this symbolism? Or do you think that there is any chance that Democrats can influence this process at all? Is what they are doing just purely symbolic, or is it going to make a difference?
I think that's another one of, and by the way, when they do get up there to speak, feel free to scream in my ear as loudly as possible so that I'll shut up and we can actually listen to what they have to say. But I think that is another one of those we talked about earlier on, the big question marks that are hanging over this. And I'm telling you again, I got the sense that something is different this time. We also got an email from Senator Royce West, who's been around in the legislature for a very long time. And he said in that email that, he was around when there was a mid-cycle, mid-decade redistricting that was done in 2003, so way back when. And he says this one is far worse than that one, because in this case, he says, it's President Trump who is demanding 5 seats to protect himself and to protect his presidency and keep the House of Representatives in Republican hands come 2026. He says, it's President Trump demanding this. This isn't even our local people here in Texas who decided they wanted to make a change. This is an outsider. This is outside influence demanding how we should do things here in Texas. And so you get that different tone that's coming from lawmakers this time. And you wonder how much, have their spines been steeled by what has happened in the past, and the fact that they came back and boom, the redistricting maps went right through, and B, lessons learned, because not only by Democrats here in Texas, but Democrats nationally, they've been fundraising off of this in recent days because they know that they're going to have a pile of bills to deal with because of this. Again, Matt Howerton led us off by talking about how each member who's gone incurs a penalty now, a fine from the state of $500 per day.
Uh-oh. Okay, looks like we timed out with our Jason Wheeler. Hopefully we can try to reconnect Jason. I'm not going to pretend that I can finish his exact thought, but I am aware of what he was talking about. He was talking about those fines that members of the House will face because of this quorum break, and it is $500 a day that they can be fined. When you add all of that up, it's going to be about $8,000 per member if they stay gone throughout the rest of this special legislative session, which is scheduled to end on August 19th. He mentioned that national Democrats have been fundraising off of this. And it's true. That is one reason we saw Hakeem Jeffries in Austin last week. They are trying to raise the profile across the country about what is happening, and they are beginning to raise money across the country. That money should be filtered down to local reps who will be the ones who face those fines. And so there is a chance, because this is getting more national attention because of exactly what's at stake, as Jason and I have been talking about, that those fines might not sound quite as bad as they did if they were the ones who were having to pay for it out of their own pockets. They cannot use campaign cash in order to pay those fines, but they can use money that's been donated specifically to a fund to try to help them cover the cost of those fines. There's also the chance that arrest warrants could be issued, and that the Speaker of the House could say, hello, Texas Department of Public Safety, you need to go bring these members of the State House back to Texas so they can do their official duties in Austin. That is one reason that they chose these specific areas, Chicago, Illinois, Boston, Massachusetts, and Albany, New York, because all three of those places are in blue states. There would not be cooperation with law enforcement in Chicago or Albany or Boston to try to go find the Democrats that are there from Texas and bring them back to Texas. If they fled to a place like Oklahoma or Louisiana or something along those lines, there is a chance that law enforcement there would cooperate, A, because it's easier to get to, and B, because there would be more of a Republican influence in that state, and they could potentially bring people back from some of those Republican areas. Again, setting the stage here, it is now 8:38 on a Sunday night. We are awaiting a news conference from Texas House Democrats. That news conference was scheduled to begin officially first at 7:15. They were having the flight got delayed, and so then it was pushed to 8:15. Then it was pushed to about 8:30, 8:35, and as far as we know, it has not yet begun. But we are expecting that to happen sometime soon. We should be hearing from some of the members of the House Democratic Caucus who have flown to Chicago tonight. They are expected to be appearing alongside the Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker, who we know has been friendly to the Texas House Democratic cause. He potentially would be someone who could say, you know what, in response to this, I am going to say that we should consider redrawing our districts. We know that California Governor Gavin Newsom has already said if Texas passes this map, he says the state of California will redistrict as well. There's a chance we could see this, as Jason was saying earlier, sort of just an avalanche of places redistricting over and over and over again. The other thing that we have not addressed yet tonight is the fact that there is a bit of a time crunch here. Democrats have until August 19th, that's when this special session is ending. A second special session, I mean, Governor Abbott could certainly call that right away. The delay factor, though, at some point, people need to know exactly what the congressional districts look like, so they'll know if they live in the district where they can potentially run. And so we do know that at some point, these maps need to go into place, if they are going to go into place, probably by October, November, something along those lines, because December 1st is the filing deadline in the state of Texas if you want to be on the ballot for the primary early next year. So that's what I mean when I say there's a bit of a time crunch. I guess there is a chance that Democrats could continue to try to delay this as long as possible, maybe through other special sessions. But that gets very expensive, and it also means an awful lot of time away from your family if you are going to spend months after months after months outside of the state of Texas. Okay, think we might have connected with look who's back. Jason Wheeler has found his way back to us.
I'll tell you what, Zoom is really effective at shutting down someone who's too long-winded. I mean, that meeting just ended. It sent me on my way. We created a new one. So there you go, Zoom.
It's a lesson in brevity, right?
But yeah, absolutely. And I've never learned that lesson.
No.
So Teresa, I was listening to you throughout, though, and those are all great points. I think the plot thickens, though, even beyond some of this, because, yeah, we've got filing deadlines for the primaries. The primaries have to be held at a certain time. or do they? The legislature can also decide to push those primaries later into 2026 and thereby allow, the governor to call more special sessions and make Democrats have to stay gone even longer. The point I was making when Zoom taped my mouth shut a few minutes ago was, again, each one of these Democratic members who leaves is being, fined $500 per day for not being there. That's a fine that the state will levy against them. When you think about 51, that's what it takes. It takes 51 Democrats to leave the state to break quorum and keep the House of Representatives in Austin from doing any business so that they can't take up these controversial maps. If you think about 51 Democrats being gone, that comes out to $25,500 per day to break quorum. So now you start adding that up and you think, well, okay, a special session is 30 days. You start doing the math on that, we start getting into real money.
Yeah.
But again, this goes back to that whole point that I was talking about earlier. Both sides, Republicans and Democrats here, are very wise about how big of a deal this fight is. And you've got some deep-pocketed donors out there who have been waiting. In these first 6 months of the Trump presidency, they've been saying, "Come on, Democrats! What are you doing? You're not standing up. You're not fighting back enough." This might be that issue that they can use to galvanize their supporters and, more importantly, their donors to give that money to offset the costs and not be worried about those fines. And then you get down to that other piece of business, like you said, Teresa, where it's just a matter of the personal suffering of being away from your family, away from your home for a long period of time, and also away from your businesses. Keep in mind, these legislators do not make much money. They don't even like it when a special session is called just for, other, less high stakes reasons, because they're trying to get back to their businesses, back to their day jobs, and earn their money. So you talk about extended periods of time when they may be away, and you start talking about a real money hit for them personally as well. But the governor can keep on calling these. The last session in 2023, we had 4 special sessions that were called as he was trying to get school vouchers through that time around. And so, these can go on and on. Now, if you start getting to 4 special sessions and Democrats are able to keep on holding out and staying away, then you really do start to get that crunch in the calendar where, how can Republicans keep pushing the primaries back? So that would definitely get a lot more difficult, and boy, would that be an extraordinary set of events. But again, I just got this sense from talking to some Democrats earlier this week that their spines seem more steeled this time around. I don't know what that means as far as how much time they're willing to devote to this and how much money, but there was just a different tone to this. And to your point, Teresa, about them going to blue states, which, obviously wouldn't be cooperative to Texas law enforcement trying to return these lawmakers forcibly. You do wonder, could we see another layer to this? And that would be, could we see federal law enforcement getting involved? Because, of course, that's controlled by Republicans now.
Yeah.
Could we see federal law enforcement getting involved? And boy, that would be another plot thickener there.
Yeah, I think that's an unanswered question. There's a lot of them, no doubt. Again, to just bring people up to speed on where things stand, we're approaching 8:45 now, and we keep awaiting this news conference that we expected to start about half an hour ago in Chicago with many of the House Democrats who we know have broken quorum and are now in Illinois to avoid a vote on this controversial redistricting process that the Texas House of Representatives has undertaken. We know that some members of the House Democratic Caucus are in Chicago. We know some have gone to Albany, New York, and we know that some have gone to Boston, Massachusetts. And so I tried to ask some of the folks in the caucus, how many, who's where? And they told me they are not going to give that information to anyone on the record tonight because A, they want to protect people, but B, they don't want to tip anybody off if there is any sort of idea that maybe we can get law enforcement involved. And so I think you bring up a good point, Jason, that we don't know if if any federal agencies could potentially be called on to step in here. Let's bring up a live picture as Jason, you and I will continue here. You can tell that they have got the setup here at this is in Chicago. This is where we are expecting to hear from members of the House Democratic Caucus. I actually see State Representative Ann Johnson over on the right. She's you can't see her right now because she's talking to someone with the black shirt and the white purse across her chest. Ann is the person talking with her, and she's a state representative from the Houston area. We are expecting this to start any moment now, and this will be the news conference with members of the House Democratic Caucus, as well as the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. So, Jason, we have established the live presence, and so we know this is going to happen at some point. And so
the cameras are on.
The cameras are on, yeah. As you and I will continue here until that news conference gets underway. I am curious a little bit about what you think this does to friendships, I guess I will say, in the House, because I think we saw in 2021 when the quorum break happened, there were some fractures. And I know that when it comes down to it, you know, they have some heated disagreements about policy. They have some heated disagreements about what they believe when it comes to one party versus the other. But at the end of the day, a lot of the people on the House floor are friends. When they break quorum, when they leave, does that create a fracture that cannot necessarily be repaired in a matter of weeks?
I think it is an especially nasty fight. And I think it does, for some reason, it does get very personal between, you know, people, as you said, who might otherwise, you know, disagree politically, but they get along. There's a lot of decent people, you know, Republican and Democrat, and, you know, they just see the world differently. They see through different lenses. They believe in different policies, but at the end of the day, they work with each other. In a lot of cases, they like each other. Maybe they've been around for quite a while in the legislature because, you know, Texas does have a lot of safe seats, you know, Republican especially, but certainly you know, there's some very safe Democratic seats in this state as well. And so once you've won the primary, you sail on to victory. You know, sometimes you won't even have a challenger in the November election. And you know, that's one reason why, you know, so many people fight against redistricting like this in a red state or a blue state, because at some point, you know, you make so many districts, and we were talking with Representative Beth Van Dyne about this earlier this week. At some point, if Texas does this, and Missouri and Ohio and Florida and other red states do this, and then we see blue states like New York and Illinois and California do it and make more blue seats safe, quote unquote safe, to where, you know, most of the voters in the district vote Democratic or Republican. You know, do we get to the point where voters are being taken more and more out of the process? So basically, as a voter, you just show up in the primaries, you select somebody, and they sail on to victory because it's such a safe seat. And I was interested, you know, again, Beth Van Dyne, Congresswoman Van Dyne, has benefited from redistricting, and I thought her answer on that was really interesting. She said, first of all, I never think of a seat as safe, but secondly, I don't want that. That's not good. And I like a competitive general election because I think you get the best representative when you have a competitive general election. So I thought that her answer on that was interesting. And, you know, you do wonder, does this, you know, ignite more of a national conversation about the whole idea of redistricting and who should be able to do it? Should it be up to commissions and that sort of thing? Because I asked Democrats here, like, doesn't it seem, because they said, you know, Republicans are cheating. They're cheating by doing this mid-decade redistricting. And I was like, well, but California says that it might counter and do it with some Democratic seats. And they're like, yeah. And I go, well, you know, would that be cheating too, though? Because you're criticizing that process, but then a blue state, you know, is considering doing it as well. And they said, well, we've got to play by the same rules. And if they're going to break the rules and throw the rules out, then we're going to break the rules and throw the rules out as well until we can, you know, finally even this playing field and then all come together and go, hey, we need to stop doing this. We need to figure out a way to make this more of an independent process to have these lines redrawn. I don't know if we're going to get there, especially anytime soon. But I am interested to see, Teresa, by going to these other states and really raising this to a big national issue now, you know, will we maybe see a state like California? This is going to be something to watch because Gavin Newsom, the governor out there, has been real outspoken about this. Will we see California now start to proceed with getting lawmakers in Sacramento to come up with a bill and possibly even get something through that says, here's what we want to do as far as redoing our maps here. And there's a question about whether they have to take that to the voters first. But will we start to see movement on things like that, just so they can turn up the heat and say, hey, Texas, look at this, what we're prepared to do if you continue with that? Does it buy Democrats some time to sort of up the ante there and see if maybe there can be a cooling off? I think that's going to be one thread of this to possibly watch. I don't know how fast they really move in California on things like that, but I think that that's one area to watch as we go forward here. And they plan for this perhaps extended stay out of state. Texas Democrats do, to try to get some movement on this.
And it'll be interesting to hear what the Illinois governor might say when he is standing beside House Democrats tonight. Does he stand up and say, I've already started this process in Illinois just because you guys came here? We don't know that that's going to happen, but it might.
Yeah, that's another point that Congresswoman Van Dyne made the other day. She said, look at, what they've done in Illinois. Democrats, when they've had the chance to redistrict, boy, they've gotten in there and they've made it real nice and blue for themselves. And so the same thing is happening in Texas. It's the way of it. And, her way of saying it was, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But Democrats here in Texas say that Republicans are just taking this to a whole new level. But again, we might see that whole new level across multiple states this time, blue and red.
Correct. Yeah, you are correct. And, bottom line is, I think we could all agree that competition makes both candidates better. And so if you do have a competitive district, you usually will end up with the best candidate. When you don't have a competitive district, it's not necessarily that way. So, okay, Jason, I've gotten word that we are just going to go ahead, leave the picture up, and wait for this news conference to begin. I can see a couple of people starting to mill around, and maybe they're beginning to gather. So that is going to be our last word, at least from Jason and from me, as we have been bringing you live coverage for about the last hour as we were waiting on this news conference to start. Don't go away, though, folks. You just won't hear Jason and me pontificating anymore. You will be able to see, though, this live news conference here on WFA+. And then please join us for WFAA News at 10. We will have a complete wrap-up of everything that happens here and a lot more context and perspective. And as you heard from Matt Howerton earlier, he just spoke with one of the state lawmakers who was a part of the quorum break back in 2003 about his memories, about what this means, sort of setting the stage for what we might see over the course of the next couple of weeks. So, all right, we're going to leave it there, and we are going to continue our live coverage. Hopefully, this news conference from Chicago, Illinois, with members of the Texas House Democratic Caucus will begin in just a few minutes. We appreciate you staying with us. To Jason Wheeler, thank you for being with me throughout the last hour or so on a Sunday night when he is supposed to be off enjoying the last few hours of his weekend. He decided to come in and help us out. So we will leave it there, folks, and I will see you on WFAA News at 10.
Anyone in empty space, I'll be the speaker. Just go around me, and there's space. Right here by the bookshelf. Towards the bookshelf. Hello? Towards the bookshelf, please. There's a couple spaces for some short. No, right here, please. Good. No, right here. No, but he's like on 4 minutes. The short guy over here. Give it away. You're smarter, younger. It's not going to be oh, yeah. You just want to stand right there? Perfect. Yeah. Sorry? Thank you. Let me get that. Okay, I got you. Good evening. My name is Gene Wu. I'm a minority leader in Texas and the leader of the Democrats in the Texas House. We're not here to have fun. We're not here because this is easy, and we did not make the decision to come here today. We did not make a decision lightly. But we come here today with absolute moral clarity that this is absolutely the right thing to do to protect the people of the state of Texas. For the last few weeks, Texas families have been burying their loved ones who were killed in the very preventable tragedy that occurred in Central Texas. Over 100 Texans died, many of them very young souls. And all Texans across the state have asked for is that the legislature focus and spend its time taking care of the families who are grieving and helping the communities who are recovering to accomplish their goals. Instead, Governor Abbott has used this tragedy, taken these families who are grieving, taken these communities who are struggling to recover, and used them as hostages in a political game. It's been 2 weeks. They don't even have a bill filed to deal with what they promised to deal with. And instead, they have spent their entire time playing dirty political games that only help themselves. And what is even worse, their attempts to do this, their attempts to disenfranchise Texans, the tool they're using is a racist, gerrymandered map. A map that seeks to use racial lines to divide hard-working communities who have spent decades building up their power and strengthening their voices. And Governor Abbott is doing this in submission to Donald Trump, so that Donald Trump could steal these communities' power and voice. we will not be complicit in the destruction of our own communities. We will not be complicit in the destruction of any communities in Texas. We will hold people accountable, and we will defend our state to the absolute best of our abilities. We're not here to play political games. We're here to demand an end to this corrupt process.
Yeah, absolutely.
We ask them to stop hiding things from the public. We ask them to stop doing things behind closed doors. We ask them to stop attacking Texas communities. They refused because their loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump overrides all other interests. We have been a part of this corruption for too long. We have seen it too many times, where Republican leaders promise our communities that they will protect our families and do what is necessary, but time and time again, they say pretty words and then take care of themselves. Well, today, this corruption ends. Today, the people of the state of Texas have said enough. Enough of your games. Enough of your lies. Today, the corruption of Donald Trump and Greg Abbott ends. And next up, we'll welcome our former caucus chair, Trey Martinez-Fisher.
Thank you, Trey Wu. Thank you, Governor Pritzker. Thank you, Illinois. I think what my colleague is saying, that this statement, this quorum break, is not about the Democratic Party. It is about the democratic process. We from Texas are so familiar with the phrase of our Apollo 13 mission, Houston, we have a problem. Well, I say, America, we have a problem. The largest democracy in the world, and yet a Texas governor would bend a knee to Donald Trump because he's afraid to lose an election fair and square. He would rig these maps to have politicians pick voters so that he can not have to deal with a Congress that will provide oversight, accountability, and real checks and balances like our founders wanted us to. This is wrong. This is un-American, and this is undemocratic. In America, we need to wake up. Republicans are stealing our democracy right before our very eyes. But guess what? Texas Democrats are here, and we have a message for Donald Trump. Not on our watch. We will not have our democracy taken on our watch. Never, ever, ever underestimate the will of the American people when it comes to protecting and preserving our democracy and our voting rights. And that is why we are here, and that's what this is about. From California to New York, from Illinois, Governor, to Texas. We are all in this together. We should wake up and rise up and speak out against this injustice, and it's time to go to work. And as they say back in Texas, I think it's time we need to cowboy up and get to work and push back. So we're pleased to be here. I had the good fortune of having Gene's job a few years ago where we had to make a quorum break, and my partner in crime who helped with that is our former Democratic Caucus Chair, and that is Chairman Chris Turner. Chris?
Thank you, Trey. So by denying the Texas House of Representatives quorum, we are using the power that we have as state legislators under the Texas Constitution to fight for our constituents. And we are all elected to fight for the people we represent. And that's exactly what we are doing here today. And I want members of the media to know that in addition to the legislators you see here in front of you today, here in Chicago, there are others who are joining us in Chicago shortly. We also have delegations of our caucus in Albany and in Boston who are meeting with leaders in those states to tell them what's happening in the state of Texas. And we also have several other members who are elsewhere, but they are not in Austin, and they are not going back to the Capitol. Together, we are united in this fight, and we are working to spread the word about what's happening in Texas. Donald Trump wants more power. That's what this is about. He wants to face no accountability and no consequences. And that's why he's demanding Texas rig our congressional districts. The people of Texas have made their voices very, very clear on this. Over the course of the last 10 days, thousands of Texans have turned out to make their voices heard in our House Redistricting Committee hearings. 99% of them, and I'm not exaggerating, 99% of them have demanded that we reject Trump's Texas takeover. So what did the Republicans do? What did the Republicans do in the face of all those people saying don't do this? They ignored them, and they did it anyway. And they've accelerated this plan, this scheme through the process, and that's why we are here tonight. There was a time when a Texas governor wouldn't be afraid to tell a president, any president, don't mess with Texas.
Right.
But Greg Abbott is too subservient and too weak to do that to Donald Trump. So Abbott and the Republicans in the legislature are dutifully following Trump's commands. And this is what this is about. They are engaged in an illegal act of intentional discrimination by tearing apart majority, minority congressional districts across our state. And we are not going to stand for it. So we are here to fight for the millions of Texans who don't want Trump's Texas takeover, and we're going to continue to fight for them, and we are here to fight back. I'm going to hand it back to Leader Wu.
Thank you so much, Chris. Up next, we're going to have Governor Pritzker, and before he comes up, we just want to say thank you to Governor Pritzker for welcoming us, and definitely someone who recognizes the need for us to fight, and also thank you to the people of Illinois for welcoming us as well. Thank you so much, Governor.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Leader Wu. Good evening, everyone. A big thanks first to the DuPage County Democrats and their chair, Reed McCollum, for making this space available and hosting us here this evening. We're here to welcome the Texas House of Representatives Democratic Caucus and its leader, Gene Wu, to the great state of Illinois. I was honored to host all of you, a group of you, about 9 days ago, and to learn about the challenges that you might potentially face. And frankly, I wish that we were greeting you under better circumstances today. But instead, we know that you are making great sacrifices to resist the power grab that's being perpetrated by Donald Trump, by Governor Abbott, and by Texas Republicans. You are answering one of the most challenging calls of public service that has ever been asked of you. And you've had to leave behind your families, your full-time jobs, your communities, and you did it to protect the voting rights of the people that you represent and voters all across this nation. Tonight, along with the Speaker of the Illinois House, the President of the Illinois Senate, and millions of Illinoisans, we are very pleased to welcome you and to stand in solidarity with you and send a clear message to all Americans. We will not let power go unchecked. Right. Or let your voices and their voices go unheard. Over the past few months, my political team and I have been in direct and regular contact with the Texas Democratic Caucus. In late June, I was able to spend time with the Texas Democratic Party Chair, Kendall Scudder, who traveled all the way from Dallas to prepare for this exact possibility. Last week, I was honored to host Chair Wu and members of his delegation for a frank discussion about what was at stake and how Illinois could help. I want to level set with you about what is happening in Texas and how it affects us all and why we are grateful that our friends from Texas are here tonight. Since Donald Trump came into office, he has taken calculated and explicit steps to grab unprecedented power and to silence his dissenters. He has ignored federal orders, federal court orders, encroached on states' rights, and he has strained our Constitution. As his cruel agenda reared its ugly head, Trump saw his poll numbers tanking and has begun to see that Republicans will likely lose control of Congress in 2026. When you try to tear health care away from veterans and seniors and people with disabilities, and stop food assistance for the most vulnerable working families in America, and raise prices on everyday groceries, all to fund tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country, then voters are likely going to throw your party out. So Trump came up with a new scheme, rig the system, by ramming through a corrupt mid-decade redistricting plan that would steal 5 congressional seats, silencing millions of voices, especially black and Latino voters. Let's be clear, this is not just rigging the system in Texas. It's about rigging the system against the rights of all Americans for years to come. Now, Texas Republicans submitted to the president's orders and took steps to advance Trump's Texas takeover. And while Texas Democrats have been trying to work across the aisle to deliver disaster relief after the devastating floods in central Texas, Republicans chose to use the tragedy as political cover to cheat. That brings us to today. Texas Democrats were left no choice but to leave their home state, block a vote from taking place, and protect their constituents. This is a righteous act of courage, and we can all take a page from these leaders' playbook. When you show people that you have the will to fight, well, they can muster the will to fight too. Courage is contagious. I am very proud that Illinois Democrats have been in this fight from day one of Donald Trump's presidency. In the coming days and weeks, Illinois will partner with the Texas House Democratic Caucus to put a spotlight on the danger that Trump and Texas Republicans pose to all Americans. To be in public office right now is to constantly ask yourself, how do I make sure that we're standing on the right side of history? There's a simple answer. The wrong side of history will always tell you to be afraid. The right side of history will always expect you to be courageous. Expect courage from people around you, and it will show up. Expect fear, and fear will rule the day. Let the courage of these leaders be an example to the rest of the country. I'm proud to stand side by side with our friends from Texas today, and we'd be happy to take your questions.
Mr. Wu, can you talk about what is going to happen if you make it through the 19th and then another special session is called? Are you prepared to stay? Is the whole group prepared to stay here through multiple special sessions?
So look, whatever strategy we choose, whatever tactics we figure out as we move on, the only thing we have in our minds is what do we need to do to protect Texans? What do we need to do to protect Americans? And what each and every one of us has said is that we will do whatever it takes. That what that looks like, we don't know. But we're here. We're committed to this, right? We're all away from our families that we've already been away from for 6 months because of the legislature. That we've been away from our jobs. We've not earned a lot of income this entire year, and our salary for being in the legislature is $600 a month. So this is not a decision, again, that we take lightly. And all the things that we are doing right now, we're doing it because we feel that this is the only way we can protect Texans. This is the only way we can protect Americans, and that we would ask everyone else, if you want to protect this country to come join us.
Hey, Governor, just want to get your reaction to something.
Sure.
John Curran, the Illinois Senate Republican leader, he issued a statement today. He called your hosting of the Texas Democrats, quote, the height of hypocrisy, end quote, since you had supported independent map making and pledged to veto a gerrymandered map. He also called the state's Illinois' current congressional map shameless in its attempt to remove choice from voters. He said Illinois Democrats should be focused on strengthening democracy here in our state with fair maps instead of chasing national headlines by intervening in other states. What's your reaction to everything that Leader Curran said about this matter?
Well, let me be clear. We passed a map in Illinois that follows the Constitution, and that is not what Governor Abbott is trying to do in Texas. We believe that the people of Texas deserve to have fair representation and not to have the game changed in the middle of the decade. There already is litigation about the original map that they put in place. Now they want to change it again. That no doubt will end up being litigated too. But let me be clear that they are attempting to cheat. And you know, I think we all know Donald Trump is a cheater.
Yeah.
So is the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton.
Yeah.
In so many ways. And we here in Illinois believe that we're, 2025. We've had elections now for, the 5 years that this map has been in place. We want to continue to have those fair elections, and we're proud of the fact that Democrats do better than Republicans in those districts where they're hyper-competitive, frankly, and we won in virtually every one of those districts that was competitive.
But when you look at a map that's 14-3,
yeah, but you're talking about the outcome, Paris. You're talking about the outcome. Look, the fact that we are very good in Illinois about delivering for the people of Illinois and that people react to that and vote for our candidates is very different than cheating mid-decade by rewriting the rules because their cult leader, Donald Trump, tells them to do it.
Have both talked about the possibility of redistricting there. Would you accuse them of also cheating if they do so?
No, remember, all bets are off when the cult leader and would-be dictator of the United States tells Texas to midstream change the game when they know that they're going to lose in 2026. All bets are off. Everything's got to be on the table. And then, so.
Cheating in one sense and not cheating in another.
The cheating here is the fact that we are midstream in 2025 and they want to rewrite the map, and for only one reason. The cult leader of their party tells them to do it because he knows he's going to lose control of the House of Representatives.
Attorney General Ken Paxton said Democrats in the Texas House who try and run away like cowards should be found, arrested, and brought back to the Capitol immediately. We should use every tool at our disposal to hunt those down who think that they're above the law. Just reaction to that.
we follow the rules.
Oh,
Yeah. Come get it.
well, they're right. I love that. The members behind me said it all. Look, they're here in Illinois. We're going to do everything we can to protect every single one of them and make sure that, because we know they're doing the right thing. We know that they're following the law. It's Ken Paxton who doesn't follow the law.
Yeah, seriously.
It's the leaders of Texas who are attempting not to follow the law. They're the ones that need to be held accountable.
What conversations have you had about sticking together, knowing what happened in 2021, where this holdout ended after 38 days because some Democrats defected?
So, look, I mean, I think we've discussed this among ourselves enough times that I hope everyone understands that this is not 2021. The world that we're living in today is vastly different. The threats to not only our state, but to our entire country, but to the very concept of what America is, this is a different day. The danger that is posed to the American people is not the same. If Donald Trump is allowed to do this, if he is allowed to once again cheat and get away with it, there's no stopping this. This will spread across the country. And just as people say it is distasteful for blue states to do this as well, but this will occur everywhere. Because if one person's going to cheat and no one's going to stop it, why doesn't everyone just do it then? And that is not a society, that is not an America that works every day. Everyone is already tired of the hyper-partisan bickering and all the fighting because we never get anything done. And they are creating a system that will reinforce that and make it even worse. And we're telling people, please come out, stand up against it, rise up and say no more, enough.
Was there a moment that set this in motion? When did you all collectively decide to state?
So look, there's not a single moment. And throughout this process, Democrats repeatedly tried to work with Republicans on this, asking them, please, could you just at least show us the maps? Could you at least give us an idea of what you're thinking about, what you're doing? Could you please just at least file the bill to do the flooding relief? Just do something. Stop hiding the ball. Stop doing things in secret. Stop shutting people down. Stop not trying to silence our communities, but actually be effective in silencing the communities. Because after they gave 48 hours after they finally revealed the maps, for the public to drive 6-7 hours across the state to come testify. And they were given 2 minutes each, and some people waited 15 hours to testify. And we didn't even finish the testimony. And we asked them, could you please go out and ask? And they said, this is not, the people who testified are not reflective of the opinions of the people of the state of Texas. Then I said, why don't you go out and do more hearings and let people have their say? They refused. Because this entire thing is corrupt. It's a sham process. It's just meant to just have the tiny amount of transparency that they can pretend that's there, and then they hide the ball and get away with whatever they want to get away with. If they are allowed to go unchecked, if this is allowed to go unchecked, this is going to spread across our country and rip it apart.
Governor, can you tell us how many people are here, how many representatives are here, and how many might be coming from New York and Boston?
I would have to dig with the numbers.
Governor, would you, as a private citizen or through your Think Big America organization, or urging the DPI, would you cover the $500 a day fines that add up when the Texas legislators are missing?
Look, what they're doing is the right thing. They have a right to raise money, by the way, to support their endeavor. And I'll be clear. I mean, I haven't done that. We've done everything in terms of logistics to support, to welcome them. And again, I continue to support the endeavor that they've undertaken here. Others have already done some of that.
Do you think you're going to financially support them as this goes on?
I can't answer that. I can only tell you that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they're welcome here, that they have the ability to stay as long as they need to and want to, and we're glad that they're here.
And frankly, there's no need, because the outpouring of support from people, from Americans around the country, the outpouring support, like since we've landed, my phone has not stopped ringing, of people texting us, keep going, tell us what you need, give you the donation link.
What is the donation link? We'll know that in a moment.
To do this, you would have to stay out of the state serially for months, potentially. Are you committed to doing that because it's corrupt and undemocratic, as you say? And if you're not certain, is there value in slowing this down rather than stopping it?
Yeah, so again, we don't know what the next steps are. We're trying to take this day by day. We have never given up trying to talk to our colleagues on the other side. We've never stopped trying to have negotiations and try to work out something that will actually benefit the people of Texas. And we will continue to do that. We'll continue to try. And again, I don't care what it is. The people here are risking their lives, are risking their safety. We had the Attorney General has threatened us. The governor has threatened us. We have members of our body have threatened us. And people take this very seriously. And people are committed to doing what it takes. And that's it.
What are the next steps? What are the next steps? Are you gonna be here tomorrow, raising more awareness about this? How are you going to still attend to the duties of the people in Texas? I mean, aside, or like what are the next steps for you all?
No, I think.
No, I mean like the regular like legislative duties and all that, like for folks in your district. Like what are the next steps here, basically, for you all?
I don't understand.
Day by day activity.
Yeah.
Day by day activity.
Well, we will have morning. We'll have press releases in the morning. We'll tell you what we're doing.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
It's stopthetexastakeover.com. Stopthetexastakeover.com.
Down in front.
Yeah, I meant
down in front.